Hello, everyone. Welcome again to Cisco's Inside Product series of conversations. And I have with me today my good friend Anurag Dhingra, who is the Senior Vice President of Workplace Technologies, which includes our campus and branch networking, which includes collaboration, which includes everything else. We all work for you, man.
It's nice to be here, Jeetu.
It's great. Congratulations on all the amazing stuff that you folks have been building. So let's take a step back.
Sure.
What is happening in AI? And how is that actually impacting the workplace?
Yeah, so it's a really good question. We've talked about this before. The AI state of the art has moved from chatbots to agents.
Yep.
And when you think about what these agents are doing, they're starting to take on tasks that you and I would typically do. And then the interesting thing is there's big implications in the workplace. There's implications on the network. There's implication for security. There's implication for tools that we use for collaboration. And we have some research that we recently published around the traffic volumes and how much an AI agent consumes for the same task versus a human.
Yeah.
And so you have to think about, if you're building infrastructure today, how do you future-proof that? How do you put something in place today from an infrastructure point of view that is going to stand the test of time for the next couple of years,
right,
as the state of the art evolves? So the workplace has to account for a blended team of humans and agents working side by side, and that's really where our innovation is focused on right now.
And that completely changes traffic patterns compared to just humans working.
Absolutely. So, when you think about what you're delegating to these agents, these are tasks that we used to do.
Mm-hmm.
So these agents are using the exact same tools, exact same applications,
Yep.
and they don't take a break. They don't get tired. They're on 24/7.
Yeah.
And so the network
No
is never
personal
idle.
days off, no vacation, no sick days.
Network is never idle. So you have to design for this new world, and it's much different than how it used to be when they were just humans.
And is that redesigning the network, is that going to be 20% increase in capacity? Is that going to be a 200% increase? Is it going to be a 10x increase? What do you think is going to happen in the next 5 years?
I think we are in the very, very early phases of this, right?
Yeah.
I think you can draw inspiration from what's happening in software engineering as an example, right? When I look at how our engineers are working, they're using coding agents. They are starting to now go from one coding agent to a fleet of agents. And that's really the sign of things to come. So imagine every human had dozens, if not hundreds of these agents that they're delegating tasks to. So it's just that factor, right? If you have 10 agents for every human, there's like 10x increase in traffic volumes.
Right.
But I think this is going to be much,
more,
much
right?
bigger.
Because they're working 7/24, so that's 30x, and then they're adding 5 times the amount of bandwidth, so that's 150x.
Absolutely.
So it just keeps compounding.
It just keeps compounding, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, okay, so that's great. So given that, there's a lot of people that provide networks, even though we are the largest.
Yeah.
And you were given a pretty mighty task of saying, don't just grow this business at the rate of inflation.
Right.
Grow this business at very high rates, and you've delivered on that.
Right.
In fact, what was interesting was this industry, by the way, has been pegged to the rate of inflation for the past, 30 years, where, 3-4% growth.
Right.
Order growth was 25% last quarter.
Yeah.
And why the answer is obvious. It's because of agents. It's because of new kind of implications of how people need to upgrade their infrastructure because of Mythos, all of those things. But walk people through how organizations should be thinking about their networking apparatus and infrastructure.
Right. So the way I think about this is, how can you turn network into a differentiator for you, into an advantage for you?
Yeah.
And the goal most organizations have these days is, how do you scale AI to every single individual in the organization? And so the network can be either a hindrance for that or an enabler for that. And that's the way to think about this.
Right.
And when you want to make it an advantage, when you want to make it a differentiator, then you have to make sure that the traffic volumes that we're talking about, the traffic patterns that are shifting, the network is capable of handling that. So the speeds and feeds matter, and then they're going to matter even more as these agents proliferate. But then the question is, how do you deal with security posture now? There's completely new surface area because of these agents. Their patterns are changing. And the interesting thing is, everything connects to the network.
Yep.
People connect to the network, machines connect to the network, IoT devices connect to the network, agents connect to the network. So the network becomes a very important control point for policy enforcement. Mm-hmm. It can monitor everything, it can watch behavior, and it can provide those signals to a policy engine and then enforce the policy. So the network becomes a security enabler. And then the third piece here really is, how do you make it all simple to manage? Because at the end of the day, humans and IT teams are struggling to find capable people with the right skill set entering the IT workforce. So how do you use AI as your companion to make you manage all of that? So when you wrap that up, simplify operations, security that is tightly integrated in the network, and a scalable pool of network devices, whether those are switches or routers or access points, that combination is really how you scale AI.
So I like the three S's. Like, you have to scale the network, you have to make sure that you're securing it, and you got to simplify it. Walk us through first, how is Cisco different compared to everyone else?
Yeah.
And two, what would you, how would you envision, like if you had a magic wand and you could go out and have a customer say, utilize all the richness of capability that you've built, what would you want them to actually have? And what does that world look like for them?
Yeah. So I think the biggest way that I think Cisco is different from everybody else is the breadth of our portfolio.
Yeah.
We have so many things that we do with this company. Obviously, we're a networking company, but we are also a world-class security company. We are a world-class collaboration company. We are a world-class observability and data platform company. And when you bring all of these pieces together, that is actually what you need to scale AI and provide people the tools to work with AI agents. And what we have done at Cisco is built a platform. We brought our portfolio together, we've consolidated. There's a single front door now with Cisco Cloud Control, and that is a natively AI-first, agent-first platform. So all of the things I was talking about in terms of simplification of operations, security policy management, and managing your full estate comes together in one front door. And then, you've talked about this before, what does it mean to be a platform? It's, when you have one piece of technology, that's great. But when you add the next one, the incremental cost of that ingestion should go down, it should compound the impact. And that's really what we're building here. And so I think that's really what sets us apart, where you can do these things piecemeal, but the full stack, co-designed stack, I think that delivers value that you just can't get anywhere else. So one very specific example is when something goes wrong.
Okay.
So you are trying to use an application, you're on your laptop, and you're not able to access the application. Is it your laptop? Is it your Wi-Fi access point? Is it your internet connection? Is it the application? How do you even debug this? How do you even start? It takes days sometimes to nail this down.
And when something goes wrong, it's always the network.
It's always the network. Yeah. And one of our teams has this T-shirt. I really like it. It says, "Go ahead, blame the network." That's because the platform actually brings all of this telemetry across the full product portfolio together. And then you have AI that can reason through that and figure out where things are broken. And that's the platform advantage when you can do that end to end.
So you have this really kind of interesting articulation of the vision that we've been talking about, which is I've got these ambient agents and they are sprinkled all over my network.
Right.
Walk through that vision on what it is that you've actually done to really fundamentally reimagine how an organization manages the infrastructure within their estate.
Yeah. So I think it's a similar journey going from chatbots to agents, right?
Yeah.
The holy grail, the thing that we want to solve, that our customers want is, can I have agents that can run operations for me, like fully autonomous?
Right.
That's what we want to build towards. You don't just flip a switch to go there. You can't just say, look, it's a black box, trust me, it works. Never works in production like that.
People don't trust it.
People don't trust it. Yeah. So you have to give them enough building blocks that they can test themselves. And then there's an audit trail. You can inspect the work and you get to the autonomy. So what we are trying to do is
you want to build confidence over time.
You want to build confidence over time. And then when you are confident, when you are comfortable with the reasoning that these agents have and the actions that they're suggesting, then you can start to delegate control. So the way to build this in our mind is, first of all, you need to have agents that are always on. This is the ambient agent we were talking about. They're monitoring the telemetry. They're monitoring all things that you care about. Are people able to connect successfully? Are they getting application experience that is amazing? All of those things that you care about from a user experience point of view, they're monitoring that. When they see that something looks off, you've crossed a threshold, errors are increasing, they get into reasoning mode. They use the best models, some that we have created. We have a deep network model and frontier models.
Describe the deep quick sidebar. Describe the deep network model for a second.
So when you think about models today, people immediately think of the latest and greatest frontier models. Models from OpenAI, models from Anthropic, Google, and those are general purpose large models. They are really good at lots and lots of different things. What we were trying to do is, look, for network operations, you want a model that understands networks intimately.
Right.
But you're not going to ask this model to write poetry for you. And so what you can do is build a specific deep model that is not trillions of parameters, it's billions of parameters.
Yeah.
It's domain specific. It's trained on all of the learnings that we have as a networking company over the last 40 years. And so it's really good at networking operations. So that's a model we have built. But sometimes you need to look at things beyond just the network. You have to collect telemetry from lots of different places. So frontier models have a place there as well. So use an ensemble of models, our models, bespoke models, frontier models, all working together. So that's the reasoning part of it. Then there's a question of, okay, based on reasoning, you came up with a remediation of how to fix it. How are you going to make that safe in production? So this is where the idea of a digital twin comes in. You want to be able to test that in a digital virtual copy of your network. And once those things look good, those tests pass, then you deploy that in production. And all of those blocks, you can inspect. You can ask the agents to ask you for approval at every single step. But then if you feel comfortable for a certain class of problems, you can just say next time when the agent runs into this, it can just fix it itself. That's the dial. So it's not a flip switch. It's actually move the dial. And then you do that slowly, and when you're comfortable, you have an autonomous network.
And you've built outcomes that are largely deterministic on a foundation that is non-deterministic.
Right. So that's the key thing, right? So look, here, if you take a step back and just think about what makes an agent different from a chatbot. I really like this story that I heard Peter Steinberger tell. He's the inventor of the OpenClaw, right?
Yeah.
So he coded up the very first version of OpenClaw. He was communicating on WhatsApp, sending messages, and the agent would do something, come back with a response. He went on vacation, and while he was traveling, just by chance, he recorded a voice note and sent it to his agent on WhatsApp. The agent responded back. And when the response came back, then Peter was like, I never coded voice capabilities. How is this working? So he asked the agent, how is this working? And the agent said, I received a file. I couldn't figure out what it is. I inspected the file. It was an audio file. I converted it into a format that I understand. I wanted to then convert it into text. I couldn't find anything on your machine, but I found your OpenAI credentials that you have given me. I uploaded the file to OpenAI, turned that into text, and now I understand what you're asking me to do.
Yeah.
And so the point is, if it was a chatbot, it would have said, sorry, I don't know what you're telling me.
Yeah.
The agent improvised.
Yeah.
The agent had a goal to serve Peter. The agent had never seen this problem before. And so the agent got creative and came up with an answer. And so the agents will be persistent in pursuing a goal. They'll be very creative. Now imagine an agent in the workplace. You give it a goal, and it's like, oh, Jeetu's asking me for this HR data. I'm going to go get this out of the HR system.
I'm going to get him.
It will feel like it will feel like a pen test on your network.
Yeah.
And it's not like somebody's trying to hack into the network. The agent is trying to serve you.
Yeah.
And so how do you deal with that type of creativity? You need a harness. You need a harness that can control this, that can give it guardrails, and then you need controls so you can inspect the work. And that's what cloud control, by the way, is.
Yeah.
It's a harness for these agents. And so that's the way to kind of go across that autonomy dial.
And so as you've started building this, and you've actually, the one thing that's been great is you were among the first people in the company that, jumped on the bandwagon and said, we're building this unified platform.
Yeah.
I'm going to make sure that Meraki and Catalyst and everything is one unified thing. You unified the hardware, you unified the software, made it available in cloud control. It's
right.
actually, you were one of the first ones out there. What made you so convicted on the fact that this is the way to go? And what have you delivered so far? What should people, if people know the campus and branch networking from a year ago, what do they not know about workplace networking today?
Yeah, so first thing is, like you said, we had two completely parallel product portfolios in networking.
Right.
We had Catalyst, amazing product, and we had Meraki, also amazing product.
Yeah. But two different products.
Two different products. There was definitely a lot of overlap. You have switches here, you have switches there, you have routers, Wi-Fi. And we were putting our customers through a lot of difficulty in making the decision. And we had all these caveats. If you want to manage this from the cloud, these are the devices you pick. If you want to manage them on-prem, this is what you pick. I mean, that's not the way to buy. That's not the way to operate. So what we've done is, we should have done this many years ago, but I'm glad we did this now.
Yeah.
We brought it together and said, we're just going to build a switch is a switch. A router is a router. We're going to have the same piece of hardware. We're going to standardize on a single operating system. And that operating system is cloud native, so you can manage it from the cloud, but it preserves all the sophistication of Catalyst. So you can manage it on premise through CLI. You don't have to give that up.
Right.
And by the way, a single licensing model, you decide you want to manage it on premise or in the cloud. That choice you don't have to make upfront. You just buy a switch, you just buy a router, buy a wireless access point, and then it works the way you want it to work. And so we've done that. In addition, when we were going through this, we were like, well, AI is happening. There's going to be traffic pattern change. There's going to be security change. What does the future of a networking device look like? And I mentioned this before. What is going to stand the test of time? So we refreshed the whole portfolio. We built switches that have 8x the capacity of our previous generation switches.
Wow. We
have built core fixed switches for campus. So your backbone can carry the traffic that these agents are going to put on that. We've put Wi-Fi 7 access points out there, the latest and greatest generation. And then we've wrapped all of that with amazing software, connected that through a platform. So that is a very different product portfolio than we had 18 months ago. It is ready for AI, and it is built with simplification in mind, but maintaining all the sophistication that we had in our portfolio.
And so this notion of like, I'm going to inject a ton of simplification without losing the sophistication,
right?
Which is what you just talked about, is what you've delivered. And it's in a fully vertically integrated stack. So we make our own silicon. That silicon goes into your system's hardware.
Right.
That system's hardware is running on our OS.
Right.
Though that OS is managed in a unified management plane in the cloud.
Right.
You've got security baked into the fabric of the network.
Yep.
And then you've got agents that are going out and managing that entire management plane.
Exactly. So that's a very different stack than we've ever had in the past.
Yep.
And this is the type of stack that you
need. And fully
need
observable.
Now. Fully observable, of course. Fully observable. And this is the type of stack that you need for the modern workplace. And then, by the way, let's not forget our collaboration technology. So network obviously is the foundation. Connectivity is foundational. But then on top of that, the tools that we use to communicate with each other, whether that is a meeting tool or a messaging tool or a video conferencing device that goes in a conference room, that device also understands networking intimately. Of course, it works on any network that you have, right? It's not like it's just tied to the Cisco network. But when it's combined with a Cisco network, you plug it in, all the media, audio, video, control channel, everything flows over a single cable. Power is delivered over that. The network on the other side understands this is a Cisco device. It can automatically configure it, automatically secure it, and all of that shows up in cloud control from a manageability point of view. So it's a really, really, when you combine all of these pieces, going back to what you were saying, the incremental cost of ingestion is very low, but then the compounding effect is where the value is.
So walk through, because there's a cultural change and shift that we have gone through in the past few years, couple of years, I'd say.
Right.
And, it used to be that we were very incremental in our innovation. Mm-hmm. And now we've actually got step functions of innovation that are coming about. What did you do with your team to make sure that this was actually instilled?
Yeah, so I think, look, culture change is not easy.
Yeah.
And culture change is hard when only one person is trying to do that.
Right.
So I think the good thing that we had is once you stepped in as the CPO, the team that you have assembled, my peers and all of us, I think collectively as a leadership team are very well aligned in terms of where we're going.
Yep.
And I think once you have that level of alignment, all the other things become easy. All of us are pushing very much in the same direction, and that's what the teams are seeing. But the other thing that is happening is we are living and breathing AI ourselves.
That's right.
All of our workflows, the way you work, the way I work, is constantly pushing the envelope, right? And there are two parts to this. I was sharing the story earlier with a customer. I'm an engineer by training. When I started at Cisco, I was writing software for a while.
Yeah.
And as I started to take on leadership roles, I stopped writing production code. For several years, I did not touch code. Late last year, I saw how my engineers are using coding agents, and I was, coding for fun at home.
Yeah.
So
I started writing again.
I called up my head of engineering for Meraki, for Thousand Eyes, for iOS X, and said, hook me up with code access. They started laughing in my face. They're like, we're not going to let you anywhere near production systems.
Code, yeah.
But they did eventually, and I was able to be productive within hours with that. And that's the, when you...
Are you now starting to contribute code?
Everyone is a builder.
Yeah,
everyone has transformed their work style and workflow.
Yeah.
And I think that is really what's pushing the envelope in how we're operating now.
That's awesome. Well, you should feel very proud. What has surprised you in the take rate of some of the technology you're building with customers?
Yeah. Look, last year at Cisco Live, almost a year ago, we had a hypothesis that agents are going to proliferate in the workplace. And so we came out with this architecture, an AI-ready secure network.
Yeah.
Simplified operations with agents, security baked into the network, and scalable next generation devices. The conversation I was having back then...
Which, by the way, I don't think you mentioned this yet, but your entire fleet of devices you have refreshed at this
Everything,
point.
yeah.
Everything is refreshed.
New switches, new routers, new wireless access points. And we have, by the way, a whole line of industrial networking devices as well. All of that is refreshed, right? So last year when we were having this conversation, I saw customers really resonate with the security angle of AI, really resonate with the operational simplification. But when you talk about scale and when you talk about agents, everyone's like, I don't know, man, I'll see if that happens.
Yeah.
That changed with OpenClaw. Now when I talk to a customer, nobody's even questioning that. They're all asking the question, how do I scale this and how fast do I scale that? And so that time window was so short where people went from disbelief to how can I get this?
Yeah.
That was the surprising. Look, we had a hypothesis this is going to happen. It happened even faster than we anticipated. The good news, we were building for that world. And so we are ready when our customers come to us now, and then we can show them how to scale that out.
So talk a little bit about this notion of token cost rising.
Yeah.
And new local inferencing starting to actually also take off, and what that has as an implication for the network.
Right. So that's sort of the next frontier that is, again, these frontiers are happening so fast right now. This could be within the next few months, right? So as you start to use agents more to do work, they are all consuming tokens, right? And the tokens are getting more and more expensive. The tokens are really expensive. And so if you scale it out to everyone in your organization, you're looking at a huge bill. And so now customers are starting to think about how do I make it economical and affordable. And that is where we were talking about the smaller bespoke purpose-built model that we have built for networking. Those type of models are very useful for purposeful tasks. And then you can start to do that inferencing for that model locally on the edge, on a computer that is sitting on your desk or by your desk. So this is where the whole category of desk-side computing is emerging now. And if you think that's the way to scale AI, and if everyone's going to have a computer that is powerful enough to run these models locally and agents in them, then that has a completely different angle again for traffics and the speeds that you need in the campus. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, even to connect to applications on the cloud, even in the models, you have to traverse the campus network. And so I think as that desk-side computing takes over, we're probably going to have to lean in even more on making sure the network is ready to handle that traffic pattern.
And it's going to be, I think it's going to be at least an order of magnitude larger from a bandwidth perspective.
Yeah.
And as a result, you might need to also start thinking about efficiency and power in a different way than what we've thought about before. Now, the good news is because we've had so much experience in serving hyperscalers and neoclouds and service providers and sovereign clouds, a lot of that technology from the silicon onwards can now start to get to make its way to the campus, which is so exciting for campuses.
It is very exciting, yes. Yeah, so I think that's the advantage of building our own silicon and working with hyperscalers, working with frontier labs, because we have a front row seat into where things are going.
Right.
And then what's happening in the data center today, we can learn from that and prepare ourselves for what is going to happen in the workplaces. And then we can have the consistency of silicon across all of our products that make us move really, really fast. And we can pivot much faster than we would be if we were dependent on merchant silicon for a lot of this.
Yep.
And I think this is
Let's talk about Mythos a little bit.
Let's talk about Mythos a bit. So I think one of the things that is happening with these frontier cybersecurity models is they're very good at finding exploits. And not just one-off targeted bugs in products, but they can actually connect the dots across many smaller vulnerabilities and then turn that into a bigger exploit. And so I think what we have to do as defenders is, first of all, make sure our products are secure. And so we are using these frontier models with harnesses that we have created to make sure our products are good. But then we have to help our customers do assessments in their environments, because this is not just a networking concern. This is not just a collaboration, or this is like every product out there.
Right.
So we have to make sure our customers have those tools. We have to give them that. And then we have to make sure that our mental model for how you patch infrastructure is going to be very different going forward. And in some customer scenarios, I hear them talk about, hey, look, I cannot even apply a patch if there's going to be a momentary glitch in the network. And I do that around 4th of July and Christmas, because those are my 2 holidays when the network is idle. I mean, that just doesn't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
You have to be able to apply these patches much differently. And we have an obligation to make it easier to upgrade infrastructure. But then we are also doing innovation like Live Protect, which is an instant shield that you can deploy to your gear, and that can give you some protection while you prepare for a patch. So I think this just changes the
This is an important thing to
model.
explain to the audience, which is from the time that a vulnerability is announced to when a patch is applied is typically 45 days. Am I right?
Well, so I actually saw a chart recently which basically said if you go back in time 4 years ago, the time that the vulnerability was announced and a well-known in the wild exploit was 10 months. This is 4 years ago.
The exploit was 10 months.
The exploit was 10 months.
Yeah.
From a vulnerability being
now it's
discovered to
minutes.
exploit. Now, even in 2026, before Mythos and these models, was hours.
Yeah.
And now it's minutes. And it's only going to get worse,
Yeah.
right? So even before these models, that time had shrunk so much.
That's right.
You just couldn't afford to wait.
So that's actually the point, which is if the patch takes 45 days, but the exploit happens in 9 minutes,
Yeah.
you don't have 45 days. You've got 9 minutes to make sure that you come up with a solution.
You have to
But
do something.
You have to do something.
Yeah.
But you're not going to be able to do a patch realistically
Right.
in 9 minutes.
Right.
But what you can do is apply some kind of shield or compensating control until the patch arrives.
Exactly.
And so that's what Live Protect does, is it's
Right.
actually got the stacking of shields
Right.
where you can have up to, like, I think 20 shields
Right.
that can be applied while the patch is still in progress.
Right. So that's a very, I think, useful innovation that we are bringing to market right now, and that's going to be across our whole portfolio.
Right.
So we'll be able to protect everything. One other thing I'll say, again, going back to security is, one of the questions that people ask me is like, aren't these agents running in the cloud? Like, why do I have to worry about it in the campus network? And the way to think about this is the brain of the agent is in the cloud. The hands of the agents are here. This is where all the tools are on your campus network. And so the damage will actually happen here where the tool execution is happening. And so when you think about it this way, it is extremely critical to protect your environment in the campus and branch network.
Right.
And that's why we're doing all of the work that we're doing with our security team and bringing that as closely together with networking as possible. Because like I said, everything ultimately connects to the network, and that's a really important enforcement point for protection.
Yeah. This is great. This is great stuff. So, any question I didn't ask?
Well, I think we covered a lot. The future is bright. The innovation machinery has never been this fast, and I'm very excited. And this is an exciting time to be in tech. Exciting time to be at this company.
And congratulations to you and your team. I think you're doing a fantastic job. And my only ask is, let's keep the momentum going and let's keep the acceleration going. But I couldn't be happier with what we've been able to build. And the beauty is that we're just getting warmed up.
We are. We're just getting
started. I know the pipeline. I can't talk about all of the pipeline, but it's like that's going to be exciting.
We're just getting started.
Yeah.
We're just getting started. Yes.
Thank you, Anurag.
Thank you, Jeetu.